Good afternoon, everybody. We're very excited to be here. We wanted to start off by really zooming out and looking at what procurement's mandate is today and how it's really changed over the last, call it, decade, right? I think originally it was much more about procure-to-pay efficiency, a lot of the transactional, I think in many ways, parts of the role of procurement that then evolved, of course, to cost savings, certainly a top-of-mind topic with a lot of eyes on procurement over the last couple of years, especially given the macro climate. But today, procurement's mandate is really much more about driving strategic initiatives. We've heard a lot about ESG, supplier diversity, and I think maybe most critically, the management of risk. Some of the CPOs I've had the privilege of speaking with these last 2 days have said to me that their job is just about as much about the management of risk today as it is about the control of spend. And I think that is a change that's occurred in the world. But, and this data comes from a Hackett Group study that was done last year, most procurement teams actually don't get to spend that much time on strategy. The report suggests that 47% of FTE time is spent on transactional operations and compliance management. 41% is spent on sourcing and supplier management. 7% on management and admin, and just 5% on planning and strategy. And if you think about, well, why is that? It's really because the role of procurement and the world of procurement has just gotten so much more, exponentially more complicated in the last 10 years. One, there are more stakeholders involved in the overall procurement process than ever before, right? If somebody wants to procure something, let alone from a new supplier, now it's not just about procurement, but it's about legal, IT, cybersecurity, privacy, risk, budget, all these different cross-functional teams and stakeholders that have to get involved. There are more stakeholders involved today in procurement than in the history of companies. Two, there's more channels because each of those stakeholders, their teams, they each have their own system of record that they use, that they work out of every single day. And of course, if you have more stakeholders and that many more channels and systems, the need to actually orchestrate the process sort of starts to arise. And of course, if you have that, then you also have a lot more data at the end of it. That makes this just even that much more complicated. I would argue that the procurement workflow might just be the most complex workflow in all of business. And procurement teams today, in many, many ways, have really hit a ceiling on what they can deliver without making some sort of substantial change and thinking about sort of a new paradigm that we'll touch on today around intake and procurement orchestration. Another way to sort of look at the change in the world, right, is to look at how procurement has traditionally been structured. I think a lot of the incumbent systems and solutions out there have been built for a top-down world of procurement, where maybe you have a smaller set of buyers, they're trained, you have a clean swim lane, there aren't that many stakeholders. But obviously, the world is different today. In indirect, buying and the initiation of spend is more decentralized than ever before. Lou and I actually experienced this. The reason we started Zip some number of years ago was, we both worked together, and we were both in the business. Lou was an engineering leader, I worked in product management, and what happened was one day, we actually woke up, I remember waking up to an email that said, Rujul and Lou, you both have been designated the business owners for a contract with this software vendor. It's coming up for renewal, and it's a large contract. And we said, okay, we're happy to help. And I remember I asked the procurement manager, I said, well, what do I need to do? He said, well, it's a renewal, existing supplier. Go to this P2P system and create a PR. And I remember I looked at him and I said, sorry, create what? What's a PR? And he said, oh, it's a purchase requisition. And I said, oh, that makes sense. I'd never heard of that before, as just a regular person in the business. And so of course I go there, and then the first question is, what is your cost center? And I'd worked for the company for 3 years at this point, and of course I had no idea. And so I guess, and then I answer some more questions, and then it says, what is the commodity code? And I have no idea either. There's thousands of options, so of course I guess, and I hit submit, and I went back to procurement, and I said, I'm done. Let me know when this thing is approved. And he said, Rujul, you're not done. That's just the PR. Once you get the contract, you have to upload it over here because we have a contract system. That's where the lawyers are. And you have to raise a IT ticket, and you have to raise a cybersecurity ticket, and you have to create a privacy request. And so I submit these 6 intakes, and as you can imagine, as time elapses, I have no visibility, right? I don't know where this is, and I realize all the stakeholders don't know. And unfortunately, the burden falls on the poor procurement person because he's become the shepherd for my request across all of these different teams. And that's why the sort of incumbent systems and traditional spend management suites haven't been able to scale. It's because buying has become so much more decentralized and indirect, which means that things like the user experience matter so much more now than ever. Those those teams that are involved each have their own system. So now you need to integrate, and you need to integrate to quite a few different systems across finance and legal and IT and so forth. And suites were not built for that. And they're not always best of breed, right? You want the flexibility. You might change your contract solution. You might change some other solution. You want the flexibility to be able to make improvements and tweaks, and that requires a certain sort of solution that's new to the world.
And in today's modern day and age, procurement teams must reimagine how they operate and relate to stakeholders. And the answer is spend orchestration, an AI-enabled next-generation approach that will allow teams to break free from legacy constraints. By sitting on top of your existing systems, your suites and your best-of-breed systems, spend orchestration enables companies to centrally coordinate across all of the different stakeholders, processes, systems, and data involved in the procurement process without painfully ripping or replacing existing systems. This strategic alignment really allows data integrity and maintains transparency from the initial purchase request to your sourcing process, contracting, third-party risk management, due diligence, all the way to the payment and final payment and record keeping. And this approach that aligns procurement with the overarching business strategy, streamlining operations, and really enhancing efficiencies at every stage of the process. And spend orchestration as a concept has really had a lot of traction over the last few years. And you have analyst firms like Spend Matters who have said intake and orchestration is something entirely new. Arguably the first new core procurement technology they have seen in over a decade. And even IDC has explained its quick rise in popularity by saying spend orchestration providers exist because there's a perceived gap in the capabilities of leading source-to-pay providers. And spend orchestration is only possible when organizations have access to 6 critical components. So these are the 6 critical components of spend orchestration. First, unified request intake with dynamic questionnaires to collect any type of procurement request, really providing one front door for the people in the business to engage with procurement. Second, AI guidance by providing next-gen AI insights that guide stakeholders to make better decisions throughout the entire process. Third, seamless integrations. This is really critical, especially as there are more and more best-of-breed systems. Seamless integrations to unify procurement processes across all of your systems. Fourth, no-code workflows to drive automation of procurement processes without relying on IT support. Not only on initial implementation, but this is so critical, especially as policies and processes evolve, and giving no-code workflows give procurement teams the tools to directly evolve their own processes. Central visibility for a unified view of the entire procurement process including tasks and SLAs, and seeing the entire process through a single pane of glass. And finally, real-time collaboration to enable seamless communication between every stakeholder. And like Rujul mentioned earlier, procurement has some of the most complex workflows across the entire business. And I think this diagram really captures the essence and power of spend orchestration. And spend orchestration allows companies to break free from the rigid constraints of traditional spend management suites that focus a lot more on the far right, the procure-to-pay processes, the downstream processes across invoicing and payments, and allows procurement to be a lot more strategic by focusing further upstream, starting with intake and guiding requesters, depending on the type of purchase, the category of spend, through the right policies across finance, sourcing, legal, IT, security, compliance, and really providing a single pane of glass view across the entire end-to-end process. And spend orchestration 10x's your procurement outcomes by making your entire business more effective at procurement. Spend orchestration enables companies to shift to more of a bottoms-up approach, where much of procurement's responsibilities can actually be offloaded and shifted to other stakeholders within the business. This is made possible with three key areas. First is more self-serve experiences, really empowering employees to take actions of their own and being able to manage the process, aspects of the process themselves. Second, more AI-driven automation to provide intelligent, real-time guidance that free up procurement's time. And finally, more connected systems, enabling keeping stakeholders in sync and connecting systems and data that reduce the need for procurement to manually copy data across systems and reducing the need for procurement to manually intervene. And with spend orchestration, companies can reimagine how procurement processes are initiated, managed, and executed across the entire enterprise to unlock earlier visibility into spend to improve cost control. More cross-functional efficiency to ultimately increase and accelerate cycle times, reduce third-party risk to protect the business, and finally, inform better, smarter decision-making for every team involved.
And just a few weeks ago, IDC released its inaugural MarketScape for spend orchestration. So this is really the first time that IDC and a leading analyst group has actually recognized spend orchestration to be its own distinct category. And we could not be more proud of the fact that Zip was named the foremost leader in this category of spend orchestration. And over the last 4 years, since Lou and I started Zip, we've had the privilege of working with nearly 500 really forward-thinking global organizations. And together, we've been able to create a solution that, and this is according to an IDC study, delivers the average Zip customer 3.6% of savings on their indirect spend base, 55% reduction in purchasing cycle times, and a doubling of compliant purchasing in procurement. The world today, has a lot of change, and I think we all feel this at DPW with all of the change in the world, and the theme of this year's event being 10xing your outcomes. You have to think of a step change in your systems, in your technology, and in your processes. And I think in many ways that starts with spend orchestration. You can scan this QR code to get a free copy of the 2024 IDC MarketScape of spend orchestration. And we're, of course, here in the second exhibit hall at our booth and free to chat.
As businesses rely more and more on suppliers, we fundamentally believe that the people in this room will play the most critical role in business in the next 10 years. And we're excited for spend orchestration to be a critical enabler to that. Thank you all for being the forward-thinking leaders to let us be part of your journey as well. Thank you.
Thank you.